We're going to kick off our conversation this afternoon by talking to Deven Ghelani, Director of Policy in Practice. He was one of the architects of the Universal Credit System. Mr. Ghalani, welcome back to LBC. Thanks very much for being with us this Good Friday afternoon. Nice to have you. Nice to have you aboard. I mean, first of all, let me get you, if you would, just to rate the announcement by Nigel Farage. This doubling down on the triple lock and really seeking to lock it into place.
Yeah, I think there's some rationale put forward to how he's going to pay for it, but I don't think the sums around it add up. With Social Security, we spend over £320 billion a year on welfare, but half of that is on pensions. So as soon as we're committing to increasing our spending on that half of the welfare bill, you're going to need to find much bigger savings in the other half of the welfare bill. And we've already done a huge amount. The benefits have been frozen at various points since 2013, and every time we've done that on working age spend, the numbers of people needing Social Security have ended up going up. So I think it can be quite counterproductive making rash cuts without really thinking them through. What we need to do is get people healthier and get people into work. Making cuts to Social Security on their own are, what we see on the ground, are very often doing more harm than good and actually pushing people away from being more self-sufficient. You know, it's often described in the United States, where I more normally hang my shingle, that talking about Social Security and the future of it is the third rail of American politics. Are we now approaching the point in the UK where the triple lock is becoming the third rail in British politics? I think it's going to take some courage, but it is, I think most people can see, the argument that I'm making. And if actually a political party set it out, we spend half of our Social Security budget on pensions. If we're going to increase it at a faster rate, that's going to take money away, not necessarily partly from the other half, but it also increases our interest payments. It takes money away from schools. It takes money away from education. What the triple lock was initially introduced to get pensions up to a level whereby they are sufficient. And I think we can start, that has happened, right? So pensions are certainly more generous than they were when the triple lock was introduced. If we keep ratcheting it up without any controls around it, it will become, the math tells you it becomes unsustainable. So I think what I'd like to see political parties do is say a level to which they want pensions to be at as a share of average wages, for example. And that's a much more sensible policy. So we can try and work toward maintaining pensions at that level without, and you're not committing to ratcheting it up year on year throughout your parliament. But, I mean, I can tell you, looking already at the texts and calls that are coming in on this topic, and it is a topic that moves people because, of course, everybody, to some degree or another, is affected by it. Any decision like that is sending a message to those people who are already of pension age, or people like myself, approaching pension age at some point in the not too distant future, that all the money they've kicked into the system throughout their working lives is not going to buy them the certainty that the triple lock has given them. You heard Nigel Farage there talking about being a representative of what he referred to as alarm clock Britain, that he wants to reward people that have worked and kick into the system and be punitive towards those people that Mr. Farage would argue are shirking and not making the contribution that they ought to be making to the Treasury. Right, Simon. So the pensions are, you're right, absolutely right. Pensions affects all of us, right? So if you're of working age, contributing, a taxpayer, you've probably got an elderly parent or uncle or others who are dependent upon the state pension. So everyone's got an interest in making sure it is reasonable and healthy. The setting up as kind of welfare versus pensioners is not quite the right argument, because as we ratchet up spending on the triple lock, it's pushing up taxes on working people. It's lowering the amount that you can spend on other public services. It's increasing the interest payments that we're going to have to pay in the future. And it isn't really about setting up kind of pensions against people who don't work. I think that's a false... The point is that there's a trade-off. Whenever you choose to increase spending, you need to find somehow tax increases or spending cuts to pay for it. And the maths of the triple lock means that they're going to continue to increase that significant part of public spending, faster than we're going to be able to pay for it by definition, because we've locked it at ratcheting up higher than the pace at which wages grow, for example. and that's going to become unsustainable over time. So I think we need to have a more honest conversation about this. And I don't think, in keeping it and saying we're going to find savings in working age welfare, it's not. What we spend on universal credit is, half of what we, a fraction of what we spend on the triple lock. I think it's even, it's less than that. So, half of what we spend on pensions, sorry. So you can't really you're not going to be able to find sufficient savings unless, again, you can articulate good ways to grow the economy, create jobs, get people into work, get people who are falling sick, getting onto disability benefits, keeping them healthy for longer, keeping them in work. Those are the kinds of policies you're going to need to be able to find, and I've not heard anything of that. It's been far more punitive. We're going to take a hatchet, I think you said in your intro, to working age welfare, but that, again, tends to push more people when they lose their work. If they don't have enough to get by, it tends to push them further away from getting back into the next job. And again, we're seeing that that's what we've seen as we've seen working age welfare frozen and cut since 2013, is that actually we haven't seen welfare spending go down despite pretty much a hatchet approach. So we need to be more intelligent, more thoughtful about this. And I'm not seeing that in this statement at the moment.
Deven Ghelani, thanks very much indeed for being on the programme this afternoon. Always a pleasure to have you on the programme. Deven Ghelani is the Director of Policy in Practice, one of the architects of the universal credit system, calling for a more fact-based, serious conversation that gets away from a kind of a slavish commitment to the triple lock, but does seek ways of maintaining pension values while also trying to determine what else the government is going to be able to afford to pay for and what issues, of course, we value as a society.